Hello everyone and welcome to the first video of Reproduction in Plants. I am Urnav Pal, your science teacher, and today we are going to talk about what is reproduction, how do plants reproduce, do they always reproduce through flowers, are there any other methods, how many plants, how many dispersive methods are there, and many more. So stay tuned throughout the whole video. So first of all, we are going to talk about what is exactly reproduction. Reproduction is nothing but when something or basically some organism, for example plants, produces more of its own kind. What do you mean by more of its own kind? It's like the process that your family goes through as well. For example, your grandparents had your parents had you, and this process keeps on going and going to continue your own kind, right? Your own kind basically means your own family. Okay, so whenever we talk about plants especially, there are two major types, the flowering ones and the non-flowering ones. Now when we talk about the flowering plants, we take an example of something like this is called a desert rose, okay, also known as adenium. This plant is a flowering plant. Why? It has a flower, it produces seeds, and that is how they reproduce, okay? But the non-flowering plants, they do not especially reproduce through seeds or flowers. For example, a cactus. Meet Mr. Cactus, and he especially loves like the whole place, okay? And these plants do not reproduce through flowers, okay? But cactuses do have flowers. They flower once in 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, but their main method of reproduction is not through flowers. Now you must be thinking, how can a plant really reproduce without having flowers? Well, we are going to answer that question in the later part of the video. The next portion that we are going to talk about is germination. Oh, and another thing, flowering plants can be of two types, the carrot and tomato. Like flowering plants have two examples, carrot and tomato, and non-flowering plants have potato and ginger. So you can find these especially in your normal day-to-day life as well. The next thing we are going to talk about is germination. So what is germination? It is nothing but when a plant, a baby seedling, okay, like whenever we take a seed, it reproduces itself or it grows itself into a bigger plant, okay? A seedling grows into a plant, okay? Seed into a plant with the help of air, water and warmth. Now you must be thinking one important thing that, well, we have learned since our childhoods that plants do need sunlight, but why not in the process of germination then? Isn't germination done with the help of sunlight? Well, actually not. Whenever we take an example of germination, that process happens under the soil. You plant the seed inside the soil, and then the soil first moistens the seed, lets it to be prepared for the growth, and then the warmth and everything eventually causes the seedling to grow into a plant, okay? Now whenever a seedling grows, what happens is there are majorly three parts of a seed. This is a total seedling, okay? It contains the seed. This is the small seed. So the most portion that you see of a seed, be it a mango, be it a kidney bean seed, the one that looks like this over here, be it nuts or any kind of seed, especially has the major portion as the cotyledon, or this portion is responsible for providing the seed, the food it needs, okay? Now this is the seed coat, and when in germination the plant receives the water, this seed coat usually softens up. The seed coat is a hard structure. It's like when you wear like a armor to the war, like a armor to protect yourself from being hit by some other stuff. or especially when you wear a helmet while you ride your cycles or bikes, that can be a seed coat that prevents the delicate seed inside, the baby seed inside, from destroying. Okay, but we are going to talk about the essence of the seed coat later on. Okay, now we are going to talk about seed dispersal. Seed dispersal basically means how a plant, here we are talking about seed dispersal, that's why plant moves from the place where it's born to a place somewhere new. Okay, you can think of it like whenever we are children, we've heard the stories of our parents, they used to live somewhere else, but now they live somewhere else. That is when they disperse from the place they are born in. Okay, for example, I personally was born at a place and then I moved to some other city. So that can be an example of me dispersing somewhere else. Same does the seed. The seed is, for example, the seed or the plant is somewhere and the seed is dispersed by the wind, water, animal, explosion, be it anyway, to some distant place from where it is born. Okay, so the first one is air. How does air help seeds to disperse? Have you heard about dandelions, the ones that we like to just shake and the seeds just start blowing and spreading here and there? Okay, they are light enough to fly in the air. So they fly with the air, disperse into some other place, and eventually we get the air dispersal method. Another one would be spores. Okay, so in water we receive a different method. Okay, in the case of water, have you heard about coconut trees happening always on the edges of the beaches? That happens because coconut especially travels and disperses through water. It gets carried through the water and eventually lands into a new place, and that's how we get coconut trees around the beaches so much. Okay, next is wind. Oh, air and wind are the same, so we can exclude one point. Okay, next is animals. So what happens is, any animal, when they consume a fruit, it contains the seed. Obviously whenever we consume guava or like mango, it contains the seed, right? But many animals, whenever they consume, for example, if an animal is eating the raw fruit, for example, they are eating the guava, so they eat it, and then after digesting that thing, the seed does not get digested. The fruit does, but the seed does not. So what happens is, now the essence of seed coat comes in play. So what happens is, this seed coat is very hard. We talked about the armor and going into the war. Well, this seed coat is the armor that helps it go through the war of it until it gets pooped out. Yeah, so when a plant gets its seed prepared, or basically the fruit gets prepared, it gets consumed by birds, animals, or somewhere other like humans. So when they consume it, it goes inside and there are acids inside the body that help it to digest. But the seed coat is hard enough to not get digested. So it gets pooped out and we get the dispersion through animals. Okay? Animals also disperse it in various other ways, but this is the most popular and the most disgusting one, but at times, it's fun. Okay, now the next one is explosion. So seeds like poppy or pea, they explode. Okay, they explode and the seeds scatter here and there. Okay, that scattering is called explosion. Okay, and the last one is spores. Have you heard about mushrooms and fungi? Okay, it's always that same classic one, which is the one plant that is responsible for dispersing through spores. It's always that fun guy in the room. Okay, so whenever we talk about spores, it's fungi, mushrooms. You know what they do? They basically release small seeds, like they're very tiny, and they release thousands and multiples of seeds. Okay, so what happens is, the wind, the water, anything, they just carry it to some other place. If there are dead, decaying objects, for example wood or any other decaying matter like soft moist place, they require a place which is moist, okay, and there they settle, they start growing, and eventually you get a new fungi or a mushroom. For example, you have seen it on bread. When bread stays there for a long period of time, the bread contains the nutrients and it gives them the ideal place for growth, okay. So now we talked about everything, and in the next video we are going to talk about what about the non-flowering plants. How do they reproduce? What are the other body parts through which a plant especially can reproduce? So see you in the part 2.